What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of exciting news to go over here this week, but before I get into the news, I first want to mention I'll be doing my usual weekly live stream here on Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time, so join if you can. It's always a fun time hanging out and talking cards with all of you. I also want to mention that I do have a new merch store that just dropped. It's been a long time coming. I haven't had a lot of merch for a while. Now I have a bunch of new stuff, including like this hoodie I'm wearing here. It's a nice zip up one with a more subtle logo there. You can also still just rep the channel here with the Matt Maran Motoring logo on even Adidas stuff now. There's even like Camelback bottles, all kinds of things. And one of my favorite things is that we now have a lowball glass that says Matt Maran Motoring there on it. And so I'll be using that in a minute here, but if you'd like to cheers with me in future weekly updates, you can grab one of these glasses for yourself. There's also pint glasses if whiskey's not your thing, but so you can check out a few of the things there in the little merch shelf that you have here built right into the video. You can also click through that to see the whole page, or you can just go to mattmaranmotoring.com. I finally have my domain set up there, so you can just go to that page, and that has my entire merch store on there with everything available. Let me know what you think about all the merch stuff, and if there's anything you'd like me to add or remove. I do have something new coming next week as well, so I will show that off next week. But in the meantime, check out all that stuff too, and hopefully you all like it, and thank you all for your support. But moving on to the news here this week. So Nissan has filed a trademark in Australia for the Z Warrior name, and so this suggests that we could actually get a production version of that Safari Rally Z Tribute vehicle that we saw last year, and that can actually become a reality. Now, it might not come exactly like that because that was a custom like SEMA kind of build, but in Australia there's already Warrior branding for the Patrol and the Navara there, and so there's a chance that this name could only be for Australia, and maybe they'd call it something else here in the States. I don't care what they call it. I just feel like a more off-road ready version of the Z would be a cool little way to differentiate it from its competitors that don't offer that kind of a thing. And you know, with Ford shooting down the Ranger Mustang idea, at least as far as their CEO is concerned, you know, I feel like there's a prime opportunity here to have that safari style fun for people who can't afford a 911 Dakar or the Huracan Storado. So yeah, we will see if Nissan wants to cash in on the, you know, off-roading kind of hype here with the Z. I think it'd be really cool. But as far as that show car last year, so that one was built by Tommy Pike Customs, and it got a 2-inch lift, unique wheels, and Yokohama Geolandar mud terrain tires, along with the visual changes obviously you see there. And so yeah, I think it'd actually be pretty cool. I mean, I'm not an off-roader or anything, and I feel like most Z buyers probably aren't, but it would just be, you know, the cool thing to show up at Cars and Coffee, the same way most 911 Dakar owners don't actually take their Dakars off-road, or Huracan Storado owners for that matter either. So we'll see, but you know, very cool to see that, you know, rumor at least. But in some other off-road vehicle news here, Jeep has announced that for the 2025 model year, the Gladiator will no longer be offered with a manual transmission. So this leaves the Tacoma as the final manual transmission truck in the automotive industry here in the United States. And so the reason that Jeep told Motor One for this is that the automatic is chosen by most Gladiator owners today and the best matches the specific capability and expectations customers tell us they want in their open-air Jeep pickup truck. And I mean, you know, I clearly showed in my week with a manual Gladiator, it's not a great experience. It isn't. I mean, you know, the Tacoma manual is much more pleasant, but you know, just the gearing wasn't set up very well. It just wasn't a very good manual for the Gladiator, especially paired up to that V6. And so, you know, I mean, it wasn't a great experience. So I guess that's probably part of what hurt it. And again, just not a whole lot of demand here. Like they said, people just would rather have had the automatic. But I think if the manual was a little better done, they might have had more success with it, in my opinion. But anyway, it's still sad to see the option go away. You know, as someone who loves manuals, you know, any of us, you can be sad about that. One addition, though, that Gladiators get for 2025 is that even the base trim now finally gets power windows and power door locks. I feel like I'm doing the weekly update in like 2010 or something. But anyway, yeah, that is a... That is now a standard thing here on the Gladiator. And for anyone who's worried, the manual will stick around in the Wrangler, but there is a caveat to that. But before we get into that, I just want to give a cheers here to, you know, the second to last manual truck. You know, again, I think it wasn't the best, but still sad to see it go. And so we will do a little cheers. We'll be using some of this later as well, so stay tuned for some more toasting later in the video here. But yeah, so cheers to that Gladiator manual. The other big restriction here for the Wrangler, is coming in 2025 here, is that the V6 is now only available with the manual transmission. So, Jeep's been trying to work on phasing out the V6. I think actually in CARB states like Pennsylvania here, the V6 was an order-only thing anyway. Really pushing everyone into the 4xEs and, at the very least, the 2-liter turbo 4. And so now, the only way to get that V6 is with the manual, most likely just because only pairs up with those two things, and it just is something that, again, they're trying to restrict a little bit more here and just pushing everyone into the turbo 4 there. Or you can still grab one of the last V8 392s, which stay tuned for my week with one of those here this fall. It's a blast, but it's pretty surprising though to see them phasing out the Pentastar V6. We've been hearing rumors of this, but then we've also seen some hope that they're reinvesting in Pentastar and that there's obviously we're going to see it in the Ram Charger and whatnot. So I'm kind of surprised, and also out of all the vehicles to phase the V6 out of, they've been doing it with others for a while now, but to phase it out of the Wrangler just seems kind of crazy to no longer have a 6-cylinder Wrangler, since that's what they've had for basically the entire time they've been around, aside from the very first ones. But, just kind of sad. This is another case of, though, the V6, I think, is the worst powertrain of the two. Yes, you get the V6 reliability and old school kind of feel, but the Turbo 4 has more punch down low, so it's better for daily driving at lower speeds around town. Potentially can do slightly better emissions and all that. And so, I can understand why the Turbo 4 is the better choice, but just kind of crazy, again, to, not have the manual anymore on the Gladiator, but also not to have a V6 in the Wrangler, again, aside from the few people who still want a manual in those. And also Wranglers for 2025 do also get that same upgrade of having power windows and door locks as standard in those as well. And there's also a new military green color here for 2025 too. But so toast to kind of the end of the V6 Wrangler. Not quite just yet, but on its way out clearly with the way they're phasing that out. So cheers to that as well. And for some more exciting news here this week, Lotus has revealed a new supercar this week called the Theory 1. Now, this is a concept, but it's all electric and has all-wheel drive and 987 horsepower, and a goal to be under 3,500 pounds, which is notable for an EV. That's thanks to a carbon tub and a modest 70 kilowatt-hour battery. If it hits that goal, it'll be about 660 pounds lighter than the Avaya hypercar, while still doing similarly fast acceleration with about 1,000 horsepower less. The hope is for it to still hit 250 miles of range, while also doing a 2.5 second 0 to 62 mile per hour time, which is plenty of speed. So, I think having less power than the Avaya isn't really a downgrade, honestly. And this thing still can have a 200 mile per hour top speed is the goal, they say. And their vice president of design told Wired that there's been this period of maximalism and people having to do one-upmanship and go above. And I think we've reached that point where it plateaus in stylistic terms and also in the demonstration of tech. We're not in a crazy numbers race with this car, which is fantastic. I wish more companies kind of shared this mindset of like, let's just give up on these horsepower wars, especially with the EVs. It doesn't matter, So, this is great. And they also say this is a preview of what their future design language will be like, and it's inspired by the Esprit, they say. And let me know what you think about it in the comments below, but I think that looks fantastic from every angle. And those doors show off a new mechanism where they swing backwards and then upwards, which is pretty cool too. And once they're open, you'll find a cool 3-seat layout. Doesn't look very comfortable in there, but is 3 seats, which is really cool, with the driver, of course, in the middle there. Clearly inspired by the McLaren F1. There's also on-demand buttons provided by a company called Motorskins. It uses a reactive textile, they say, on interior surfaces that can display buttons when appropriate, and it's even built into the seat back to tap you on the shoulder, for example, when a car is coming up behind you. So kind of like a physical alert to blind spot monitoring kind of, or it'll just convince people that the car is haunted on the first drive. You're feeling like random taps mysteriously on your shoulder there. It's like the high school prank taken to the high-tech level. But anyway, there is no other info on how it'll be priced or even if it'll get produced. But I think Lotus, they're a sports car company, and they did the SUV thing, they're doing the sedan thing here. They need to also do the sports cars, and I think fans know that, the company knows that. It's good to see that they're also getting back to the core of their brand of not, having the most horsepower. I mean, still, we're talking about almost 1,000 horsepower. Not like this is any kind of modest car, but, that they are focusing on lightweight stuff, and that's what they were all about, and so I'm happy to see them getting back to that, even if they had to make some concessions there for the very heavy SUV and sedan. So anyway, but very promising to see that. And one of the themes here of 2024 has been partnerships. We've seen lots of partnerships, and there's another couple of partnerships here this week to talk about. So 2 companies that are potentially teaming up here to get more cars produced are General Motors and Hyundai. And so this week they signed a memorandum of understanding to potentially develop and manufacture both gas cars and EVs, both on the passenger side and on the commercial side, as well as potentially working together on hydrogen tech, battery materials, and even steel. Which, I mean, Hyundai makes their own steel, so I'm assuming that would be something GM would be buying steel from Hyundai to make their cars. So, I mean, this seems like a really deep partnership if it does actually come to fruition. A memorandum of understanding doesn't guarantee anything. It just means that they are seriously pursuing this, and they said that talks started immediately as soon as they signed that. So, sounds like this is a very serious memorandum of understanding, but, still that's the stage we're at currently. But according to GM CEO Mary Barra, the goal is to bring even more competitive vehicles to customers faster and more efficiently. And this comes at a time when, everyone seems to be partnering up. Like I said, Honda, Nissan, and Mitsubishi just joined forces not too long ago. Toyota, Mazda, and Subaru also teamed up to work on EVs and on, gas engines and plug-in hybrids and all that. And GM's partnership with Honda, to develop low-priced EVs, that fell through last year. So this could be replacing that. But GM and Honda are still partnered on hydrogen stuff. And that'll play in here in a minute. But personally, I think the main driver for this partnership with Hyundai and GM is just the Chinese competition. Like, everyone is freaking out about the Chinese competitors. Ford this week also said that, like, they are really far ahead, and it's a serious threat. I don't think it's really getting played up enough in the media and in the car world, just how serious of a threat. I mean, this is like. And I think there's been other stuff in the past that's talked about how this could be an extinction level event for many car companies if the Chinese companies do come in and dominate in one way or another. And things are getting crazy when all these companies that used to be strong competitors with each other are all teaming up, all partnering up, and everyone's partnering with everybody. It seems like we're just having this giant conglomerate slowly forming here. And so I think that's the main driver for the EV sector. The gas stuff, obviously, there's some benefits there, but it's just also these companies are all bleeding money, developing so much for these, future next-gen EVs, and then also having to pivot to gas and plug-in hybrids that weren't part of everyone's plan to begin with. It's just very capital intensive. And so any way they can share costs, everyone, I think, is like, you know what, we're putting our pride aside, and we got to make this work and survive. And so I think also, though, again, this partnership is also potentially about just anyone who believes in hydrogen. They all need to just band together, because there is such a small amount of hope right now for hydrogen, but there is a lot of potential for it if money continues to be invested in it, and if they can find some way to develop this tech, especially in the commercial sector. It has massive potential. But since it hasn't gotten off the ground, and it seems like it's almost going in the opposite direction with, hydrogen stations dropping out and stuff, I think Hyundai is just desperate to be like, literally anybody who's interested in hydrogen, partner with us. Let's all work together. Which I think is a great attitude as well for something like this. If you're going to get this kind of very challenging new tech, to the next level, you have to, just do whatever it takes, I guess. And so I'm also curious if GM wants Hyundai's plug-in hybrid tech, because, there was talks they were going to bring over. There's a plug-in hybrid Equinox in China. They could just port that over, but maybe for other vehicles, or maybe if that system isn't suitable for U.S. stuff, maybe there's also some interest here in grabbing Hyundai's plug-in hybrid system, very quickly. Or if we're talking about future stuff, Hyundai just announced, a week or two ago, these next-gen range extenders and stuff that I don't think GM has any of that kind of stuff in the works. So if the range extender thing seems really exciting to GM, maybe they partner up with Hyundai on that too. We could speculate all day here, but anyway, very interesting to hear about that. But speaking of partnerships, the other partnership here is the Korea Economic Daily has undisclosed sources, so this one isn't confirmed just yet, but they claim that Hyundai's CEO will also be meeting with Toyota chairman Akio Toyoda next month, with him flying to Seoul after being invited by Hyundai's chairman. So again, reaching out and extending invites and saying, look, Toyota's very passionate about hydrogen. Hyundai's really passionate about hydrogen. Why aren't we working together? I think that's kind of probably, the educated guess there that can be made. It's just like, again, hydrogen is not going, as smoothly as I think these companies were hoping it would. And, they're all very passionate about it, and they should just work together. And I think that's most likely what's going to happen here, but we'll see. Maybe they'll have some creative differences or something. But the publication claims the main reason is for that hydrogen tech. They could talk about other things, though. Who knows? And again, it just seems like they're leading this all-in effort with Hyundai. And I think also, Hyundai, probably wants to see if they can get Toyota in on this because Toyota is partnering up with BMW. I don't believe Hyundai and BMW have a partnership yet, although that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, again, it seems like Hyundai is partnering with everybody. But, if you can kind of leapfrog and say, okay, we connect the dots with Toyota, that connects us to BMW, who's planning on having a series production hydrogen vehicle in 2028. And then, also we have the partnership here with GM and Honda. I mean, there's all these different, hydrogen things that are being worked on. And so I think it's just trying to connect all those dots to bring everyone under the same umbrella and, try and come up with something here. So again, we will see, how that ends up playing out and if there's an agreement that gets made there or not. But very interesting to see, again, these crazy times we're in. It's wild. If you would have said 10 years ago, yeah, all these companies are going to be partnering up, and be like, are you serious? Like, there's no way. But here we are. So crazy stuff. Continuing on with some official Toyota news here this week. They first revealed a refresh for the 2025 Sienna, and the interior is where all the changes are. The outside basically only gets new wheels for the Platinum and the Woodland Edition, and there's a new gray color. But inside, there is a new 12.3-inch screen that replaces the top 9-inch screen and now ties Toyota for first place with Kia for the biggest touchscreen in a minivan. And that 12.3-inch screen is the same one we see in all the other, Toyota SUVs. It's a great system, and it's really good to see they quickly updated that in the Sienna, even though the Sienna isn't really very old. The screen also comes on everything except the base LE trim, so, pretty much everything gets this here. It's great that we even have the base LE trim, considering, Honda just announced that they discontinued the lower trims of the Odyssey and make everyone get an EXL or higher now for the Odyssey, which is crazy. So great that we have, the continued affordability here for Sienna. The other new tech is an advanced rear seat reminder that uses radar for the first time to detect movement in the vehicle after it's been turned off and locked. And we see Volvo pioneered this last year. It's debuting in the EX90. And we are seeing other companies clearly wanting to do the same kind of thing. It's a great idea, I think, as long as it doesn't add too much cost, which, by the way, cost hasn't really changed. It's going to be starting at just over $39,000, which is pretty much what they started at for 2024. So really no price increase for, newer tech, better stuff. It's really great. There's also on the inside here a vacuum you can get now and a fridge box, both integrated into the back of the center console, and both of those are great additions as well. I think the fridge box is probably the cool box we see in Land Cruiser and stuff. Just poured it over and said, hey, let's make a few more of these and put them into the Sienna. And it's great that they've added that. And if it is like the cold box in the Land Cruiser, then it is like actually a refrigerator. Calling it a fridge box is accurate. It gets as cold as a refrigerator. It's fantastic. That's going to be so nice for minivan owners, and especially the vacuum is a great addition as well there. So anyway, those two things are both standard on the Platinum, and they're also available on the Limited. So those are going to be for those higher trims, but, just great they're adding those in. You can also now get a digital cluster on the XSC and higher, and all trims now have updated interior fit and finish on the seats, console, and dashboard, they say. Although I don't recall there being anything objectionable there whenever I reviewed the Sienna interior a while back. But it also, it continues to be nice and affordable, again, with that low price, like I mentioned. And that does keep it as the cheapest hybrid minivan available, with even the Carnival hybrid coming in about $42,000, I think, after destination. So there isn't any updated pricing for the rest of the Sienna trim. So maybe some of those top ones, again, with all these new features and toys, might have ballooned a little more. But at least on the low end, they've kept it basically the same. And that's really commendable. And so that's going to be arriving here this fall. The other quick announcement here that Toyota made this week was that the 2025 Highlander gets a 25th anniversary edition to celebrate its 25th birthday on the market here. It's a very subtle appearance package that puts silver trim on the very bottom of the sides, a little sliver there also on the front and the back, along with getting a badge. There's also unique wheels and the option of only gray or white paint. That's all you get. But inside you get the 25th branding there on the door sills, puddle lamps, floor mats, headrests, all that stuff. It's based on the limited hybrid, and only 2,500 of these will be made. So actually a pretty rare special edition, especially for a Toyota. The only other big change here for the Highlander this year is that the hybrid version goes all-wheel drive only now. So if you wanted a hybrid Highlander and you didn't need the all-weather traction, that's going to be something you're not going to be able to work around here for 2025, because they'll all be getting that. But all these Highlanders will be arriving here in November, so great to see that. Another long-running nameplate, though, that is coming to an end, unfortunately, is the Accord EX. The EX trim is no more, which, I don't know, like, to me, that was always, like, I think the most well-known, like, trim in Honda, and just, it was always just a nice package. Everyone understood what it meant. There was no confusion. Basically, EX, especially in these more recent years, was like, okay, it's not the base one, it's not a loaded one, but it's a nicely equipped model. And that's always kind of the, consensus you always had with that. And, I don't know why they're throwing it out, especially adding in this SE trim. Now they're just copying Camry, which literally also has an SE trim. I mean, it's not like Toyota has a copyright to Sport Edition, but still, like, just makes it seem a little more generic. But anyway, for this SE trim, you get a sportier appearance there, darker wheels and all that. And this is now the highest trim before the hybrid variants start, with those going up with the Sport Hybrid and above. And the base LX trim, though, does thankfully stick around, which is commendable considering, again, Honda's, fascination with getting rid of base models. So, it's good to see that at least we have LX still. But all 2025 Accords here also get rear air vents now as standard, and more USB-C ports. So that SE trim starts at $31,655 for those that are interested. And the 2025 Accords are already arriving at dealerships. So interesting to see that, but a quick little cheers here for that Accord EX. It's sad to see it go. And one old nameplate that is actually going to make a return here, supposedly, is the Dodge Stealth. And if you remember, I covered this actually last year. This was a thing that had been floating around. But unfortunately, just as a reminder here, it's not going to be on a cold two-door because, of course, this is the year 2024. Of course, it's not going to be on a two-door. Take a wild guess what it's going to be on. A giant three-row SUV. Again, these are the times we're living in. But so the reports here are saying now it's going to replace the Durango as the three-row SUV. And so Automotive News Canada talked with the Vice President of Global Forecasting at Auto Forecast Solutions, which is, one of the top forecasters for this stuff. And they're the ones making this claim. They say it'll arrive in early 2027 and that a few months later the current Durango will be discontinued. And so this isn't too surprising since, like I said, about a year and a half ago, we heard the first reports about Stealth coming back. There was a dealer convention, I believe in March of 2023, where it leaked out on Reddit that, or someone who was there said, they're bringing back the Stealth. It's going to be on a three-row SUV. And, obviously it's going to be sportier than the Durango and all that. And, so this isn't fresh news. A lot of outlets are acting like this is the first they're hearing of it, but I certainly remember the dealer convention and all that hubbub back then. But the more surprising component of this report, honestly, is that Auto Forecast Solutions claims that the next-gen Durango has been canceled altogether. Which, I mean, again, not to discount their expertise. I'm sure that they, know far more than I do, but I don't know if I buy that, because if this is true, one, that'll really upset the UAW, the unions, with the promise of a next-gen Durango coming in 2026 being part of that big agreement that happened last fall. And I covered, they listed out, here's all the plans that we're promising for those union members. One of those things was that a new Durango is coming in 2026. It's going to share a platform with a new Grand Cherokee. It was a done deal. That's confirmed. You're not getting out of the union contract, unless you want to strike. So, I mean, that was about as ironclad as you could get. And now this is, they're reporting that this supposedly is not happening. Now, it could just be that, they're swapping the Durango nameplate for the Stealth nameplate and everything else continues as planned and, nothing else is changing. And that in that case, you wouldn't have the unions being upset, but we'll see if it's that or if it's something more, because it sounds like Stellantis also this past week, they are trying to move production of this Durango or Stealth from Detroit to the Windsor plant in Canada, which also is not part of the union deal. And the union members are already upset, and they're talking about strikes and all this potentially happening if that does actually go through. And so, it's interesting. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens here. I kind of feel like Dodge may still have something up their sleeve, because there were rumors back in 2021, and obviously plans can change, so I'm not going to take a rumor from 2021 to the bank here, but there were rumors that the Durango could be a new Tahoe and Expedition competitor to sit beneath the Wagoneer. And to me, that made a lot of sense, because, Wagoneer, even though it is, cheaper than Grand Wagoneer, it still seemed a little more prestigious than like a Tahoe or Expedition. And so, I think there's room for a regular Dodge 3-row, truck-based, Ram-based thing. So, that's kind of my hint, is maybe, this Stealth, yes, so this Durango replacement thing will move to Canada, maybe, but, maybe it's like, well, don't worry, because we're building a brand new Durango giant thing based on the Wagoneer in Detroit still, and, there's nothing lost there from a factory standpoint. We'll have to see. There was nothing in the Auto Forecast Solutions report about any kind of Wagoneer-based thing for Dodge. So maybe that, hasn't panned out. And again, maybe it's quite possible a Durango could be killed. But I also, you think about how much brand equity Durango has. Would they walk away from that, especially to bring back a sports car name that they're slapping onto an SUV? I don't know. I think there's room for both. Again, if Durango finally becomes the large thing that a lot of people have probably been wanting it to be anyway, I don't know. To me, there's just, I think this report might be close, but I feel like Durango can't go away completely, in my opinion. We'll see. See who's right. I'm sure it'll probably be them, but interesting to hear that. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below. Speaking of future large SUVs, though, we got our first look at what is likely the next-gen Volkswagen Atlas this week, thanks to the Chinese government's crazy regulatory site that requires car companies to share their designs before they're released for the public in China to comment on. And so in China, this model is known as the Terramont Pro, and the specs list a wheelbase that's identical to the current Atlas, suggesting that this might continue on the same platform as the current Atlas, or at least a very minor evolution of that. Usually whenever you have identical wheelbases, that's a dead giveaway that the stuff underneath the skin is the same, or again, very lightly changed. So that would make sense. There's nothing wrong with the Atlas platform, I don't think. If they have a slightly evolved version of that, no one needs to have the most advanced underpinnings with any of these SUVs like this. So I think this completely makes sense. They're also in the specs for this, which have to be listed also on this Chinese site. It lists the 2-liter turbo 4, which, again, if we're using the same engine as current Atlas, we're using the same platform as current Atlas, this is just going to be, a new generation just based on that same platform there. And the one change, that it is 2.3 inches longer, supposedly, for this new version. And as far as the styling, it's clearly, completely unrelated to the sheet metal of the old one, with, the very futuristic streamlined design there, the flush door handles, I don't know, it takes some time to grow on me. It's a little bit of more of a departure than I'd expect from an Atlas, especially these days with all these SUVs getting more rugged and aggressive. This, to me, seems like it's almost a step in the opposite direction. Maybe Volkswagen wants to separate themselves from everyone, but, we'll see. This also might just be a China exclusive thing as well. That's not out of the realm of possibility, in my opinion, but supposedly this is going to be arriving as a 2026 model year, and it'll debut sometime next year. So we'll have to wait and see, but interesting to see that. Another car that was leaked early, thanks to, again, that Chinese site, same place, was the electric version of the Mini Cooper John Cooper Works. And as you can see, it gets the usual JCW enhancements with the sportier bumpers and wheels there. And thanks to the specs that are also, again, required to be shared, we get a confirmation of its power bump from 215 horsepower to 255 horsepower. And so a nice little jump over the regular SE. Weight is the same as the regular SE as well, which means the 54.2 kilowatt kilowatt-hour battery pack still remains, which does 249 miles of range on the easier WLTP test cycle for the SE, and likely will do a little less here for the JCW since the motor is a little more powerful, and you'll probably have, again, bigger wheels and tires, a little stickier, and probably hurt range a little bit as well. We also don't see the inside of this one either, but the full reveal of this is supposedly happening sometime before the end of this year, so fairly soon, and doesn't matter to us here in the States, sadly, for this one for a while, because all these electric Mini Coopers are built in China right now, and so that means that, once these tariffs were announced, like, they have nothing until the Oxford plant is supposed to be tooling up to start building these electric Coopers in 2026, but we're just going to have to, admire them from afar until then. We're going to have the gas versions of the next gen Cooper here for the next couple of years, but no EVs for a little bit here. So this is just going to be forbidden fruit for now, but hopefully, it comes over eventually here. And but you got about 2 years to save up for that one, probably, if not more. Moving on here, another vehicle that we also won't get for a while is, and this is if we'll ever get it, I don't know if we'll ever get it, is the Ford Ranger plug-in hybrid that debuted in Germany this week. So it uses the same 2.3 liter EcoBoost 4-cylinder and 10-speed auto as our Ranger here in the States already, but then adds in a 100 horsepower electric motor and a battery with 11.8 kilowatt hours of usable space to provide 28 miles of range on that WLTP test cycle, along with giving you 275 horsepower, which is less than our Ranger currently, which is kind of odd, but it gives you a massive 509 pound-feet of torque, which puts it above even the Ranger Raptor for torque, like we often see with all these electrified things, where it's just a mountain of torque, and that's awesome. It can also tow 7,716 pounds for this version. And production begins in the spring of 2025 in South Africa, but it'll be available in Europe and other international markets, they say. But Ford's US division confirmed to Motor One here this week that we definitely will not be getting it. And this is really, again, it's mystifying. Everyone, the hot thing is plug-in hybrids right now. I'm sure Ford, wouldn't mind the help with the CAFE regulations and stuff, and they have it already here. Like, it's, we have this generation Ranger. They have all the components in other markets. Why not bring it here to the States? It just, especially now that we know that the electric Ranger and stuff, that's all being pushed back to, I believe, 2027, they said, right? Or 2028. So we got a ways to wait for that. They could have this here, by 2025 and sell a plug-in hybrid for a few years until the electric one comes. And then when the electric one comes, obviously not everyone's going to be excited about that either. You have the plug-in hybrid as a bridge until people are ready for that electric one. It's just one of those things you chalk up as just not making any sense, and it is what it is, but that's like low-hanging fruit that I'm sure there's some kind of reason why they decided not to bring it here, but I would love to hear the reasoning for that, because that just makes zero sense to me on the outside looking in here. But anyway, interesting to hear that, and congrats to those of you in Europe that now have a plug-in hybrid option for the Ranger. And another questionable decision comes from BMW here this week. So this is another one. So they announced that the head of design for BMW, who I'm sure lots of people aren't fans of, that person is now moving over to lead the design for Rolls-Royce. Which is quite possibly the worst news for Rolls-Royce in the history of Rolls-Royce. Like, I want to do a cheers to remember when Rolls-Royces looked nice. That might come to an end soon here with this person doing the design work for the next Rolls-Royces. So cheers to beautiful Rolls-Royces. They will be missed. Buckle up for some hideous Rolls-Royces coming in the future here. And I'm sure Rolls-Royce will use the same defense as BMW did, that these designs are not meant for everyone, which is, in my opinion, a nice excuse for saying that it's a bad design. I mean, no one is offended by beautiful cars. They don't hurt sales if they're beautiful. Just make them beautiful. But that's enough from the peanut gallery here. But the other side of the coin here, though, is that the people that will be replacing him should bring back some less polarizing designs to the future of BMW. So that is great because, I think BMW's got really solid powertrains, really solid vehicles in their lineup. And if they were less polarizing, I think their sales would be even better. Even though sales are fantastic. They set a record in 2023 for sales. So clearly the designs are not hurting that much. But it's interesting to think about, are the designs helping more? Or are the BMWs just being successful despite the designs, and they're just killing it in every other metric? Well, I don't know, but anyway, two different people will lead each half of BMW's lineup. So Maximilian Missoni will handle design for future upper midsize and luxury class vehicles in the BMW lineup, and he previously was the head of design at Polestar. So, I mean, again, styling subjective, but I think Polestar designs are certainly a lot more beautiful than BMWs right now. This is a massive win for BMW to get the head designer of Polestar to be doing some of those top BMWs. I'm looking forward to seeing the fruit of that. Great promise there. And then the compact and mid-size lower end of the segment there will be handled by Oliver Heimler, who previously was the head of design at Mini, which, Mini has been a little more daring in the past few years, with some of these brand new designs. But at least personally, I think that they're more agreeable designs than what we're seeing from a lot of these BMWs. So I think that could also be a nice improvement potentially for that lower half of the lineup as well. And so I'll check to that again. Cheers to seeing some good-looking BMWs hopefully coming in the future. I mean, now it's worth noting, all these designs are locked in years in advance. So all the new class stuff that we're seeing, that is still going to happen in 2026 as planned. We're probably not going to see the fruit of all these position changes until, end of the 2020s, maybe for some concepts, but then probably not on production vehicles, maybe even until the 2030s potentially. So this is going to be a slow burn here, as they work out of the current design language BMW and stuff. But yeah, I mean, again, BMWs are on a great course, and if they have some beauty back in their lineup thanks to Polestar-inspired designs, that's going to be a winning combo, I think. So cheers to them on recruiting a Polestar designer. That's awesome. And for the last news story here, also great news here. Porsche has patented a 6-stroke engine. Just really wild, just outside of the box thinking here. And so, unlike, there's the usual 4-stroke engines that we're all very familiar with that does intake, compression, power, and exhaust. This engine would do intake, compression, power, then compression and power again, and then, of course, exhaust last. So essentially, it sounds like they're really trying to maximize the amount of energy they extract from each drop of fuel. And so, typically some of that does get wasted and goes through the exhaust. This is how we can have crackles and burbles and backfires, because obviously that stuff's igniting, and they could ignite that stuff in the engine and make more power. And, it's honestly surprising no one's tried this sooner, but kudos to Porsche. I mean, they just have some real geniuses working at them that are just living in the year 2030 already, I think, and just, come up with these things that's just like, why didn't anyone else do this? And finally, Porsche is the one to, be the pioneer here. But, so they're achieving this through a clever crankshaft design. So hopefully it's not too much more complex. I mean, again, this is just a patent. I'm sure if this is something they plan to bring to actual production vehicles or even race cars, they're going to have to do a lot of testing. It might not actually work as well as it sounds in theory. So again, we're in a patent phase. This might never see the light of day. Who knows? But it's just, commendable with Porsche doing like the e-fuels and really working hard on that to try and keep the, current stuff around and fueled as long as possible, even in an electric age that we're going into, and then now doing this to say, okay, if we are using e-fuels, which maybe might be expensive, or we need to increase the efficiency, or we just want to, again, continue to reduce those emissions and, get better and better fuel economy, this is a great way to do this. And, hopefully it works as well as it sounds, but that sounds really promising. And so cheers to Porsche engineering for being brilliant. And I hope that actually pans out, because that would be a fantastic improvement. And this is the kind of stuff I've talked about for years, where if we have developments with any of these technologies, whether it's gas engines or EVs or hydrogen or whatever, if there's some huge technological breakthrough that makes another emerging form irrelevant, then we might not need to, make some of the changes, or these changes could improve things even faster and better. And, that's the cool thing about engineering and following, engineering, not only for the automotive sector, but in general. I mean, they're brilliant people that come up with great problem solving, techniques and ways to improve everything, and so kudos to them, and best of luck getting that out in the public here. And lastly, I want to thank all of you that are members of the Maran Motoring Club. So we did have 3 new members that actually joined this week. 2 of them were thanks to membership gifts given by Kyle in last week's live stream, and 1 who also joined on their own. But first, huge thanks, Kyle, for your continued generosity in every one of the live streams this year. Everyone really appreciates your continued generosity. I, of course, appreciate it as well. Thank you so much, Kyle, for continuing to provide those and just being awesome. And I also want to give a big thank you here to Ford enthusiasts as well for joining on their own during last week's live stream. Hope you're enjoying the perks so far. And I also want to give a big welcome here to PM and Oscar, who were also gifted those memberships here thanks to Kyle. I hope you're all enjoying those perks here, and I look forward to chatting with all of you that can make it to Sunday's live stream as well. And be sure to check out all the other perks if you haven't already. But for anyone else that'd like to join and become a member, there's always join buttons here on the video page, on the channel page, and a link in the description. And don't forget, you can also support the channel here with the merch. Once again, I've been chilling in my very cozy hoodie. It's really nice and fuzzy on the inside, really nice and warm, and feels great. So highly recommend. Not like I'm biased or anything, but definitely check out the store again and see if there's anything there that catches your eye. But anyway, also please remember to leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.